come through here more often, even after this next election. I love ag, and I have no intention of requesting coming off of ag. Florida is the second largest producer of specialty crops in the United States. So ag is huge. And there's some areas over here that are unique to ag. Obviously, our dairy farmers, we certainly need to continue to follow issues that are important to milk. I know timber obviously is big all through our district. And having family that are in the timber business, we certainly follow that issue. But currently, right now, Tom Mooney and I are the only two that are serving on ag. So what we're going to do is we're going to continue to come through, and so I'm not going away. If I'm fortunate enough to go back, and I got to get through November 1st, but if I'm fortunate enough to go back, it's my intention to stay on ag. It's my intention to stay on natural resources. We are working extremely hard in the fisheries. It blows my mind that for almost 20 years we've not had anyone that served on natural resources from Florida. We got more miles of coastline than any state in the union, and it really is amazing to me that natural resources is not just a requirement of a couple people from Florida. So I enjoy natural resources, and then of course transportation and infrastructure is my third piece. But we're debating the highway bill right now. But with that said, I know we had our last town hall meeting this past year, and we had 16 last year in all 16 counties. This is our, I think, 13th that we've had since January 1. This town hall meeting, we've got several more that we've got to do. And then we also do town hall meetings. So sometimes in the evenings you may get a phone call from us to join our town hall meeting. It is only done in a desire to keep you plugged in to what government is doing, to give you a voice. It is never our desire to interrupt your dinner or to keep you from bedtime. So we try to make sure that when we make those calls, that we call around that 6:30, 7 o'clock hour. And those have been going very, very well. When we do that, by the way, we call about 150,000 residents of Florida's 2nd Congressional District. And for 1 hour, we invite them for 1 hour to stay on a phone town hall meeting, to ask questions, to hear our responses, and just for clarity's sake, we don't call just Republicans or independents. We call Democrats. It's really a sample of our district. And in our district, we have almost 100,000 more registered Democrats than we do Republicans. So we call our entire district, and we have found that in doing so, the response has been very, very good. People want to know that they matter. That's built in all of us. That's where God made us. And so hopefully with our town hall meetings, our tele-town hall meetings, our e-newsletters, hopefully you know that you do matter to us. I will say this, that we're not perfect. When you have 450 letters coming into your office a day, and all those letters have been checked and tested for powers through security. We live in a dangerous world today, so they take extreme caution to get the mail and correspondence to us. A lot of those come in through the internet, though. We try to respond to those letters as fast as we possibly can. And then we try to come through and schedule one-on-one meetings. We'd love to meet with you one-on-one. I need to go out and see dairy farmers, and I need to go out to Longwoods, and I go to Buckeye, and I see what real life is like in our district, and I think it keeps me grounded to make sure that all the decisions that we have fought for over the last 16 months are people in mind. I have been, I will say this, every issue we face in D.C. today is having to work around one single issue that is by far the biggest obstruction to freedom going forward. And so, what we are having to do right now is make sure that everything that we do involves making decisions around the debt. When you owe over $15 trillion in debt, we have to acknowledge that. It has been a battle. It has been a fight. We do not have a willing partner on the other side of Capitol Hill in the Senate. It has been almost 1,100 days since the Senate has passed a budget. Nothing worse than playing tennis, hitting the tennis ball, and never having to come back over the net. I think to have the largest economy in the world is to not have a budget. I think it's irresponsible. It is the responsibility of Congress to pass a budget each and every year. I'm proud to have sponsored the No Budget, No Pay Act. And it's a bipartisan bill. It was actually introduced by a Democrat member of the House from Tennessee. And what the honest budget, what the budget says, the No Budget, No Pay Act, it just says that if you don't pass a budget by March, and the 12 appropriation bills that go with it, Congress doesn't get a paycheck. That's pretty simple. I mean, it's not complicated, very straightforward. And if it takes you 3 months after March to pass a budget, and you finally do pass a budget, you don't get the back pay of the 3 months you lost. The budget issues that we face in Washington are like a cancer. I mean, it is affecting everything, every department. It is affecting your way of life, my way of life, our children's way of life, and it is robbing them of really that opportunity that they deserve. And so we are. The Harry Reid has already said that we will not produce a budget this year either. So I don't anticipate us having one going forward. The president put forth a budget request. It's not the president's responsibility to do the budget. That's Congress's responsibility. But the president, each president does put forth a budget request. And the president's budget request was the 4th consecutive $1 trillion deficit budget request that he has put before Congress. So last year, we spent $3.8 trillion, and we took in 2.2. It would be like you spending $38 with only $22 in your pocket. That's what that's like. And so this year, the president continued that insanity by pushing forward a 4th consecutive budget that has over $1 trillion deficit in it again. The budget that the president pushes forward is also a futuristic document. What it does is it basically casts a vision for 10 years that really shows us what he wants us to do in the outgoing years. The president's budget will, when I say it's irresponsible, laughable, I'm serious. He will push if the president had his way over the 10-year period, it would push our debt to $25 trillion. Now, it was so laughable. It was such a joke that not one single Democratic senator voted for the president's budget. It was defeated in the Senate 97-0. Not even Harry Reid voted for the president's budget plan. And then it was interesting, about a month ago, we took it up in the House. And this was interesting. Not a single Democrat in the House would sponsor it to bring it to the floor. So Mick Mulvaney, Republican congressman from South Carolina, brought it to the floor. We wanted to know. Unanimous defeat. Not one single Democrat vote in the House of Representatives for the president's budget. When it became time to debate on the floor the president's budget, not one single Democrat claimed time. Not a single vote got off Capitol Hill. That's how disconnected. That's how disconnected this administration is from the people and from those who represent them. So, one of the things we have done, I have to realize very quickly that our opponents are going to have to, they can't run on the record. They can't run on their accomplishments. They're going to have to run against us individually. They're going to have to, and that's why Max is here. Y'all remember Matt?
Yeah.
Y'all remember Matt?
Absolutely. Yeah. I was welcome to this.
Well, say hello to Max. Max hates what I do. It's the show and tell portion of our program. So what they're going to do is do what they try to do last year. Try to find 2 or 3 words, and cut and paste, create an ad. Really says that I said something that I didn't really say. But that's what, and by the way, I just want to be very clear. Because I've had people that are in favor of what I'm actually doing saying to me, well, you do it too. No, we don't. No, we don't. No, we won't. I've made it very clear that in this race, we're going to run on the issues, and we're going to beat them on the issues. I'm very clear. As I felt with Matt last year, 2 years ago, and I feel the same way with Max. It's not personal. I think they're just kind of young people. There's no animosity towards them. I think that it is time when we've got to have elected officials that have to smear and debase and put out fraudulent, make-believe untruths about others. First of all, if that's what it takes, I don't want to go to Congress. I don't want to go to Congress. Well, yeah. Mama said, if you want to go to the hot, you're going to get dirty. And you cannot, if I will not be elected going forward based on our vision, based on my belief of America and what I think our forefathers believe, then I'll go home. I'll go home. So that's part of the nastiness of campaigning. It just is what it is. But going forward, I just want you to know that the debt and the budgets are the single greatest issue that we face. You've heard the quote from Admiral Mullen that the single greatest threat to America's security is our debt. He didn't say the Taliban or Al-Qaeda or China or he said the single greatest threat is our debt. The enemy is within. It is within. It's here on American soil. It is decision makers that are continuing to make bad decisions that strip us of our financial strength. How do we get that? We got that through hard work, sacrifice, earned success. And so this year is a pretty important year. I can't imagine a year more important than this one when it comes to the election. But one of the things I want to do today is not just sit here and talk to you. I also want to hear from you. We've got an hour that we're together total, and then we've got other stops we're going to have to make. But I want to make sure it's not just me talking. I want to hear. I want to listen. Part of a relationship is give and take. Part of a relationship, for me and Susan, is talking and listening. Now, I will tell you sometimes I do more listening than I do talking when it comes to living with 5 women. But it is, I want to hear your point. So, one other thing I want to say to you is we are currently debating the transportation bill. We have gone to conference, and there's only been a few bills that have gone to conference. And the idea of conference is this, that the House passes a version of a bill, the Senate passes a version of a bill, and those 2 bills go to conference. And it is in that conference where the conferees are appointed. So the leadership of both houses appoint conferees to go in there and negotiate those two bills to produce one product, one bill. And then that one bill goes back to both houses and is voted upon, and there is one product. Most recently, we did that with the FAA bill. And so, out of transportation. And we will do, and that's where we are with the transportation bill now. The transportation bill, and I'll mention this to you because there's going to be some things that you're going to hear in the media in the next few weeks. There are several things that have been attached to the transportation bills. On the Senate side, they have a 2-year transportation bill, and they've attached the Restore Act. Now, the Restore Act deals with the BP fine dollars that are going to be levied from the EPA to BP. And we know those dollars are going to be somewhere in the amount of $5 billion to $20 billion. It's a lot of money. And the Restore Act basically says that 80% of those fines, that money will go to the states that were directly affected by the disaster. So that would be Florida, Alabama, Mississippi, Louisiana, and Texas. So just for the example's sake, let's say that the fine were $10 billion. $8 billion goes to the states. $2 billion would go to the Treasury. And that $8 billion that goes to the states, there's several pots of money. Would be used both for the environmental restoration caused by the disaster, but also the economic restoration that is needed. Because our coastal counties, many of those coastal counties were devastated, and that devastation worked inland. So it wasn't just there on the coast. So there's a Senate version of the Restore Act. There's a House version of the Restore Act. Both are attached to the transportation bill, and so we'll be a part of that conference. And then on the House side, we also include, once again, Keystone, the Keystone Pipeline Project. We believe that that is an issue that resonates with the American people. You get that. You believe in energy independence. You also believe in creating jobs, and the Keystone Pipeline Project does both. And it's far better to the environment than Canada piping that crude oil across the Canadian Rockies, putting it into the bellies of tankers, and sending it to China, who has a woeful environmental record. So we think it's good for the environment, we think it's good for jobs, and we think it's good for our energy independence. Not to mention, we think it's good in our partnership with our ally to the world. There's one other thing, there's a couple other things that are attached. EPA. EPA is something that is dealing with so many people's fits. From county commissions, dealing with water, wastewater treatment plants, to farmers. We hear so much about EPA. And there are some EPA reforms in there that we deal with. And then finally, in the transportation bill, we include some reforms to DOT in the way they do business. The average DOT project today takes almost 15 years from start to finish. 15 years. So when a DOT project is rolled out, EPA loves it because they send all of their agents and they literally gum up the process, and that's how they justify their existence. So one of the reforms that we included was to shrink that process and almost cut it in half. Because if the process is 15 years, it's going to cost a lot more to fund that project than a project that takes 8. There's the time value of money. And so those reforms are in there. And we know this. Remember the bridge that collapsed in Minnesota? Remember that? The bridge was rebuilt in 437 days. 437 days. So we know it can be done. And I think that our reforms make that happen. So that's one thing that you'll hear a lot more, and that's why I mentioned that. Now let's get on to the question. You were about to ask me a question. I think about being verified.
As president of North Central Florida Tea Party, we've got to keep up with these deeds. And I want to commend you. Most of the time, we agree with your voting. If we had to vote today, we vote to keep you in. But I want to mention a couple of things to you that we think that you're wrong on. And one was voting on to extend the Patriot Act. And we don't care about the comments if you don't want to. It's okay. We just want you to know how we feel.
Well, you're not going to criticize me without me commenting.
Okay. Then you voted for the NDAA and also for the South Korean trade agreement.
Right.
Now, the question I have for you today is what you've already brought up. Is in 2010, we sent a bunch up there to try to split the spending. And I think everybody is more outraged about that than anything that I know of. When you go to the grocery store, it seems like everybody except you's got food stamps. And we're just outraged at it. Especially when you read the Constitution. And what we read out of it says all appropriation bills must originate in the House of Representatives. When can we stop the spending?
First, let's go back to the Patriot Act. The Patriot Act, which was passed after 9/11, the Patriot Act that we debated last year was not the Patriot Act in its entirety. We voted on 3 provisions in the Patriot Act. Not the whole bill, just 3 provisions. Those 3 provisions dealt with foreign individuals coming into this country. One of the provisions was the lone wolf provision. Now, I'm of the opinion, as I studied the Constitution, that no foreign individual that does not have U.S. citizenship, they do not have rights under our Constitution. Now, they have rights because I believe that we have our rights given to us by the God who made us, the moment He made us. I have rights to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness because I'm a child of God, not because I am an American. But what the Constitution does, the Constitution says that you will have those rights protected. Now, the protection of those rights that we will defend and fight for, according to the Constitution, extend to American citizens, not to foreign individuals. So I'm of the opinion that if a foreign individual is here on American soil, I want to know who you are, I want to know where you are, and I want to know what you're doing. I think that's fair. And that's what we voted on those 3 provisions only. Now, the whole bill of the Patriot Act, the whole bill, is under review now. So not just those 3 provisions, but the whole bill, which created a lot of concern about infringing upon personal liberties of American people. So the whole bill is, I think, in judiciary, and they're reviewing. And so I don't know the schedule of when the other part of the bill will be reviewed or reauthorized. But I know that the 3 that we voted on last year were just those 3 that dealt with foreign individuals. Secondly, the NDAA, which is the National Defense Authorization Act. Each and every year we pass an NDAA bill. And there was great discussion, especially on the internet, regarding the detainee portion. Section 1021 and 1022 of the NDAA bill. Some believe that the NDAA bill allows the federal government to detain American citizens and rob them of their habeas corpus rights. So that created a big hullabaloo. I mean, it wasn't done quickly. It wasn't done in the dark of night. It wasn't done as Nancy Pelosi and her Congress did on a health care bill Sunday night at 2 a.m. It wasn't done like that. This bill was debated. This bill was voted upon in the daytime. Okay? But in that, and I'm aware of 1021 and 1022. I mean, I before the vote. I think the language is there, but I will agree that the language could be clarified better. So, a colleague of mine, Jeff Landry, from Louisiana, another freshman member, he did something called a colloquy. And it's a floor, it's a floor exercise where when a bill is being debated, there's something that is not understood by maybe the members. So Jeff was able to go to the floor, and he had a colloquy, a conversation about the specifics of the bill regarding the detaining language with Buck McKeon. So Buck was over here controlling the floor time because he's the chairman of the House Armed Services Committee, who oversees the NDAA. So he's proposing that the NDAA be voted upon and become law. So Jeff goes up and begins a colloquy, begins a conversation on the floor directly with the chairman to get clarification. If you go online and you type in Jeff Landry colloquy, you'll find this. You'll see it. And in that conversation, the chairman clearly states that 1021 and 1022, his understanding and guarantee is that it did not rob the American citizens of their habeas corpus, that they could not be held, okay, without warrant, without without proper
Due process.
Due process. Thank you. Now, the one thing so we voted on it in NDAA. We voted yes. After that bill was passed, Jeff Landry, before it was passed, Jeff Landry said, I will withdraw my amendment because of your clarification. However, I want the NDAA bill, I want the committee to add some clarifying language and work on it in committee just to make me satisfied for the next time that it is renewed, which is coming up next month. So here we are on the NDAA. I've been very clear that if they do not put that clarifying language, that Jeff, and this is common sense language, if that language is not added to the 2013 NDAA, I don't know. Because even though I think the wording was okay in the 2012, why would Congress not want to make it clear and to really clarify without any reasonable doubt that the American people's due process rights are whole? So it's going to be a moment it's going to be a test. If they take the Landry language and put it in 2013, I'm a yes again. If they don't, I've already made it clear. I know. Because there's no good reason that they're not to clarify that issue beyond a reasonable doubt. So that's the NDAA. Your third issue was
South Korea.
South Korea. We had 3 trade agreements. We had Panama, Colombia, and South Korea. In working with the South Korean trade agreements, we believe that those 3 trade agreements are unlike some of the other trade agreements that we're getting absolutely pounded on. I think we're getting our teeth kicked in with our Canadian trade agreements over timber. I mean, when you come down here and buy a 2x4 that has been government subsidized from Saskatchewan, you can buy it cheaper than you can a tree that has been harvested, by bird family and gone to a sawmill and then delivered here. There's something wrong with that. But those 3 trade agreements, we worked with industry groups that very closely on those three trade agreements. And I specifically remember very detailed discussions with Florida Cattlemen on the South Korean trade agreement. Because in that agreement, we are going to have access to South Korean markets with our cattle. And it wasn't the only thing that's going to be involved in that trade. But in my district, the group that will benefit, that certainly weighed in on it, was the Cattlemen's Association, beef cattle, which to me is also a jobs issue. That if we can export our goods and services abroad, it's good for us in creating jobs. Same with Panama and Colombia, because we are the gateway to Central and South America, just in proximity. I think we're going to benefit in a huge way to have access to their markets. And so, I think the president did not want, but he was feeling a tremendous amount of pressure on those trade agreements. He made reference to those trade agreements last year in his State of the Union address. And so, I'm glad he did, because I think those trade agreements help the American worker. And so we believe in Florida, more close to home, it helped the Florida cattleman. And we spoke with Adam Putnam's office. Adam was, as you know, was in Congress for 10 years. Adam's legislative director was Karen Williams. Karen Williams left his office when Adam came back to Florida to be ag commissioner. She came to my office. She's been through 3 farm bills, which is an enormous piece of legislation. And so we worked with the Florida Ag Department. We worked with Adam to come to our decision that the South Korean trade agreement was good for Florida. It wasn't something we got too quickly or without great study. As far as your bigger issue, that 90 of us freshmen were sent to Washington because of the spending. I can't even begin to properly explain to you my anger and aggravation over the financial mess we're in. I mean, I voted last year. I had voted for, when we got to the debt ceiling, I voted for cut, cap, and balance. Now, cut, cap, and balance was the only debt ceiling deal, or debt ceiling proposal, that met the matrix of S&P, Moody's, and Fitch, the 3 credit rating agencies, because it cut spending, or cut our debt by $4 trillion over a 10-year period. We need to do that. None of the other deals, the Bayer deal, the Gale 6, the Reed plan, the McConnell plan, none of them. They all raised the debt ceiling, but they didn't they didn't institute cuts of $4 trillion over 10 years. And so I can make the argument that they guarantee the downgrade. So, and there's another reason I voted against the final version that raised the debt ceiling. It did 3 things that I think were just gnawing at me and I would not support. Number 1, it created a super committee. We have a nation of almost 308 million people. And I think that when we send 535 to Congress, they are a super committee. And there was no way that I was going to take my voting card, our voting card, and give it to 12 other individuals that got there the same way I did. I wasn't going to do that. I think that there was a proper process, and I disagree with the formation of a super committee. But the most sinister part of the super committee was that if they failed to reach an agreement, which I thought would be pretty clear that they would not. If they failed to reach an agreement, then sequestration would kick in. And what sequestration would require is automatic cuts. Almost $500 billion to defense. And $150 to Medicare. Now you're going to hear a lot from Max and his friends about how we don't care for seniors, is what they're going to say. Okay? I bet they'll probably just cut out that little part, care for seniors, and use that. But the point is, try to help Max. The point is that's not true. If you listen to what the president does and then watch what he says, it's 2 different things. The president was very clear, and he proved to the world in the passage of the health care bill 2,600-page document after midnight on a Sunday night.
That nobody read.
That nobody read. But they had to vote for it to see what was in it. Well, we're finding out what's in it. It's ugly. It stinks. It smells. Okay? Inside there, the president's plan cut Medicare by $500 billion. And then the sequestration that he helped design in the debt ceiling deal cuts Medicare by $150 billion additional dollars. And then last year we voted for a payroll tax extension. And we lost. I went down. It didn't pass. Back in December. You know what? Inside that bill, it prevented a 27% cut in Medicare reimbursements to doctors. So if doctors are taking a 27% cut in service to their Medicare patients, who ultimately does that affect? The patients. So the president, while saying that he cares for seniors, unfortunately, I'm sure we're focused, make sure the volume's up here, Max. Unfortunately, the president says one thing, and he does nothing. So I just feel that the debt ceiling deal and the look, we cannot, without a Senate that wants to work, we're going to continue to do, I think the CRs are crazy. The continuing resolutions are crazy. And I think that the president wanted $2.4 billion trillion increase in the debt ceiling. And ironically, there's a chance, and I know this is mind-boggling, he wanted that to extend beyond the election. They're going through money so fast. There's a chance that they're going to hit the debt ceiling again prior to the election.
Shut it down.
Yes.
My point is that wasn't in our plan. So I think there's much more to come on that issue. But I share with you my aggravation on the budget and that Washington spends money it does not have. It is aggravating, it is dangerous, and as Admiral Mullen says, it does undermine the very security of the American people. So I hear you. Yes, sir.
I'm Ted Williams. I'm a family forest under here in Swanee County. I just want to say thank you to Mr. Karen Williams. We met with Karen Williams, John Alter and I, on the 14th of March. And thank you for your work on the farm bill, specifically wood, the inclusion of wood, or the attempt to include wood as green building material. I think everyone in the room realizes it's green building material, and I know you do.
Absolutely.
Thank you for that work.
Well, thank you. And let me just say this. I'm leaving tonight. We're going to a conference where we're going to be meeting with wood producers for 2 days. We're meeting with organizations like John Deere. We're meeting with their engineers to understand the EPA requirements that are being pushed down upon our manufacturers. I bought loaders. I bought skidders. I bought bunchers. I borrowed money from John Deere Credit. And I know how that works. And I also know how those onerous EPA regulations drive up the cost of the equipment. And I also know this. I know the EPA regulations and what they're doing. Because we met with Buckeye. And I know that they've been very clear. Their hostility towards any plant. The EPA. Lisa Jackson is very clear. And those who love to throw around the term crucifixion, we know it's more than a hostile environment towards factories. Factories employ people. People live in communities. Communities are part of municipalities. Municipalities make up small towns. Small towns make up small counties. That is America. So the attack is on America and everything we stand for. So we're gonna meet with them. We're gonna meet with obviously some of the point water source issues, the rulings out of the Ninth Circuit out in California, which to me is judicial activism. It's funny when something seems to go the way of the president, he doesn't talk about that. or when there's a threat that something might go against the president, all of a sudden it's judicial activism. So it is we're on that issue because timber is huge, not just in this county, but in so much of north and northwest Florida.
How many of the regulations that the EPA does get involved with seem to come down to UN Agenda 21? How familiar are you with that, and how worried are you about what
I'm extremely worried. Let me say this. My familiarity with Agenda 21, which is obviously UN plan, it is the exposure that I get to the UN and their efforts in the fisheries subcommittee that I sit on, and natural resources. Because it is inside that plan that we learn about the oceans policy. And if you want to see something that is disturbing, go look up the oceans policy. Mrs. Lochico, who is she's a piece of work. She is the director of NOAA. And if you look at the oceans policy, to really strip the coastal states of their sovereignty in the water. You see, we're busy talking about everything on land. Everything we've talked about today has been on land. But you got a world that's over 70% water. So if you conquer the water, you control the world. And so if you look at the UN, you look at their efforts to do the oceans policy, and I am probably in a better, because I'm a committee of oversight for oceans, I'm on the subcommittee for oceans and fisheries. That's where I see most of their efforts at really trying to take our sovereignty as a nation, kind of the small guns, issue, but to take our sovereignty and hand it over to a world body. You see, I really believe that there are those that are serving in power today in Washington, D.C., really want us just to be another nation in the roster of nations somewhere between Albania and Zimbabwe. And I don't think I'm not for that. And so I just think that is what some want. And so I think their commitment to that body is more paramount, more important to them than to our commitment to the American people who have created a country that is the envy of the world. Are we perfect? No. Countries like churches. My dad told me when we were kids, son, if you find a perfect church, don't join it, you'll ruin it. There's no perfect country. Okay? But on our worst day, we're the envy of the world. So I'm more familiar with the oceans policy, and I've read about Agenda 21, and I know, but here's what's happened. Agenda 21 is going to be ushered in and facilitated, I think, in large part from the water, coming from the water, because the American Home Builders Association, which affects family farms, family tree farms, the American Home Builders Association has taken a vehement step to stand in opposition to the ocean policy. Because what they're trying to do in the ocean policy is expand the scope of it to where it doesn't just apply to oceans. It applies to water, rivers, streams, estuaries, puddles, wherever rain falls and runs. And so the home builders recognize its threat, and they are being proactive on Washington, D.C. So when you start seeing people come to your office from the Home Builders Association talking to you about the oceans policy, they get it. They get it. Yes, sir.
I would like to move to your new district, sell my house and buy a new house there. However, the Democrats and Obama would interpret it as an improvement in their program.
According to the health care bill, you owe 3% tax on that.
But seriously, I resent the fact that the National Republican Party take you away from us. But and I mostly resent the fact that the Republicans have been nothing but tearing among the Democrats. And and they haven't been telling the truth to us about what's going on. In particular, the fact that we have no constitution since 1936. We've been under emergency powers, and you know what that means. The Constitution set aside. The President, the Secretary, and Treasury they are our Constitution. And everything Obama is doing today, he has decided to do because he's working under emergency powers with executive orders and so on and so forth. And there was a study done by Congress on the termination of emergency powers, but it never got anywhere. Now, why are they withholding this information, both Democrats and Republicans? Why are they withholding that information for us people while they're increasing our taxes, which are going to waste and actually we are paying for our own destruction? And it doesn't make sense. When is somebody going to wake up? Like I told you the last time, history shows us that statesmen make nations, politicians break nations, liars shake nations, gangsters take nations, and finally they invite barbarians to rape nations. Now, this has to stop. We were, after 5,700 years, America came along with a new world order, so to speak. They offered to Americans and to the world government, a new government, non-human rule of law. In other words, 5,700 years is nothing but fairness in human rule. And as a matter of fact, that's the controversy of the ages, which began with Cain and Abel. Cain wanted man rule, Abel wanted God rule. And here we are today in America. We're divided. Some people want God rule, others want man rule. And we see what man rule is doing. So, I don't understand.
Well, you said a whole lot there. I'll tell you what. We can have an altar call. It is, and I agree. First of all, thank you for your time. And you are so faithful because you attend all of our events over here on the east side, and you will. I will miss seeing you on regularity because you've been so kind and so very articulate in framing your concerns. And I'll miss being your representative.
For those of you who don't know Mr. Chadwick, he's a former prisoner of war, World War II, held at the hands of the Germans. He's one of our oldest living veterans in this area now.
Germany at the end, as the World War II was dying down, I was a prisoner of war escaping back to the American line. And I asked as many Germans as I could, how could they let one man destroy their lives, their homes, their family, their businesses, and everything? And they always tried without exception. We thought he was good for us. We didn't know he had a dark side. So, it's a little bit more...
Let me tell you what he did. When he killed 11 people, he lied to them. He lied to them. You tell them the churches in 1938 burned to the ground were burned up Jesus. So it is imperative that the American people stay engaged. What this election is about, it's very simple. We are going to either become a social democracy. That's one of our options. No, we teed that up. So we will either A, become a social democracy as a European nation, where government determines your success, caps and trades your success and potential. Where we're a government-centered society. Everything evolves around government. That's one of the choices. Or, what I think, we're going to be reconnected to the greatness that got us here. And let me tell you about that greatness. Our founding fathers, you've heard it. You've heard people quote it. You know, that we believe all men are created equal and are endowed by their Creator with certain inalienable rights. We've all heard that. Especially during campaigns, you hear that. Because that's in the Declaration of Independence. You know, they talk about life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. This election, I think we need to focus on reclaim the moral high ground that we have ceded. We have ceded away to Max and his buddies. Okay? No, we have. Okay? Because they want to talk about fairness. Right? They want to talk about greed. There is no entity more greedy than the federal government. What area of your life is not bogged down like kudzu with the federal government's presence? There is no area. None. So what we've got to do is we've got to say our founding fathers were brilliant in understanding, and they don't like talking about our founding fathers. They don't talk about their brilliance and how they studied and how they formed this nation. The governments that they studied, Rome, Greece, all the governments of Asia Minor, they don't talk about these things. But in that document, life is the most precious and most basic of all human rights. And once life is secure, then we have the luxury to address liberty. But not before. Your liberties do not supersede life. So the founding fathers were telling us something about process. That there is proper process. Washington knows very little about good process. And bad process always produces bad law. Our founding fathers understood life, liberty, and once liberty was established, then it was kind of release the hounds. It was the pursuit, not the entitlement, not that clinging to you, not to guarantee. No, the pursuit, the work and struggle and challenge to get to happiness. And happiness is whatever you determine, as long as it doesn't violate life and liberty. And so therefore, what we've got to do in this election, we've got to do. You know, they want to talk about, they want to talk about the social safety net. It's now become a social hammock. Well, let me say this. If you care about social safety net, then make sure that small businesses all around this country can employ people and fund the social safety net. Oh, he's right. He's right. So my point is, folks, we have got to retake the moral high ground and get back to realizing that it is those things, the pursuit of happiness, earned success, that you are rewarded on your merit, you are rewarded on your effort, and you have earned success, not had it determined or handed out without the effort that goes into it. Carl.
Steve, I know you weren't a politician before you went to Congress and I think you've done as good a job as you could. I think you pray about it. I think you work hard. I appreciate that. I know that those folks do. There's just three things I would like to encourage you to continue to do in Washington. annual terms. I don't want to hear about a 10-year budget. When we're going down and we're spending money we don't have, I want to talk about this year. So see if you begin to talk about what we're doing right now and not 10 years out. And secondly, tell the leadership to put word in about trying to please people and do what's right. There's some steps and do what's right and follow our policy. You know what we need to do. Sure, we've got faith in you. But try to encourage those other 534 to get on board with you and make good, honest decisions near term and do what's right. That's what we need.
Let me say this. Thank you for your kind words, and I appreciate your confidence. I want you to know I'm not by myself. And this is where I want to give you some good news. Okay? There's a whole bunch of us that irritate Max and his friends. Okay? So it's not just Steve Sullivan. Okay? And there's a reason that the DCCC put down in my raise about $830,000 2 weeks ago. You know, they said it, the bombers in World War II used to say, if you're not taking black, you're not over the target. We're over the target. They don't like what we stand for. We're a threat. And so therefore, they're going to come and bring money and go forward. And so we're going to help the economy. Because I think when we start talking about the issues and the policies and you know, and Carl, to your point, I think there is a group of people, I know that I spend more of my time, you know, with freshmen. But it's not just them. I also spend time, you know, with Jim Jordan from Ohio, Mike Pence from Indiana. Let me tell you, Mike Pence is one of the finest men you'll ever meet. Ever. And one day I believe he'll be president of the United States. I hope so. Because I hope that you get to know Mike Pence that I've gotten to know. So we've had these wise sages there that have been there for a while, that are fighting the good fight. They are thrilled we're there. Because they're tired. Mike's leaving to go to Indiana. I believe he'll become the governor of Indiana. And I think we'll see him on the national stage after he gets that executive experience. And I think it'll be good for him. But you're right. We've got to be statesmen. You know, that's what I hope to be. Even though I disagree with my leadership, I enjoy a good relationship with them. And I think that's because I've tried to be statesmanlike in my disagreement. They know how I feel. They know when I say no, it's a no. There's no sense of whipping me. Because when I say no, it's no. And when I say yes, it's yes. So.
Okay, Steve, I know there's a lot of people in this audience want to ask this question, but I'm going to ask it for them. When we found out we were going to lose Trudeau Congressman, we began a vetting process to find a candidate to run for Congress. We wanted someone who would go up and be a help to you, someone who, like you, in 2010 was brand new going up there, never held a political office before, who could go up there and take our ideas and values with them. Someone who, like you, knew the agricultural community of this area and knew what was going on. To that end, you can see in the shirts being worn by the audience, we've selected Mr. Yoho, most of us, some of us are still out there in the woods yet, that they're coming on board. And we've got a momentum going like you had on this end of the district because of our agricultural foundation and our footing. And when we started vetting these candidates, we wanted someone who would go up and accent you. We were disturbed the other day, and I should say disturbed, we were unhappy that you decided to make a decision to